Hey you guys, and welcome back to How to Code Basic. Today I was thinking about making a tutorial series on how to make a chatting application where you talk with the laptop or the JavaScript code itself. I was thinking that it'd be looking like this. I mean, this is not the final product. The final product is going to be different and prettier. And it's going to be like a pop-up in the middle of the page right here. But this is the essential goal of just this video. So what it's going to happen is when you type in something in this text box and you click on this chat button, what it's going to do is it's going to type it to the right of the div. Now, I don't have any CSS styling on here right now. All I have is just a little bit of JavaScript and HTML. But in later videos, I'm going to go ahead and add in some CSS, add some more JavaScript, and add in a lot more functionality. So hang in tight as I go ahead and show you guys how to do this just in this video. So for starters, I'm going to go ahead and create a new HTML file. It's going to be called chat.html. When it loads, it's going to come up like this because I'm using Visual Studios. If you're not, you can go ahead and pause the video and fill in all this stuff, or if you're a fast typer, just follow along. So the title, I'm going to make it chat. What the title does is it fixes up this part right here. So now when I go ahead and save that thing that I originally did, which is this, go ahead and save this, refresh, see how that says the big link. Now when you refresh, it'll say chat. And now this icon, I'm not going to use an icon. So for the body, so what I was thinking is it's going to have some text right here that's going to say this is my first chatting application. Then underneath there could be like a button somewhere in the middle that says chat. And then when you click on that button, what's going to happen is there's going to be a pop-up right here, and then that's going to be the chatting application that we make. But now if you're not into that, that's okay. That's just how I'm going to do it. So to start that off, I need to go ahead and use a div ID pop-up. So right now it's just going to be a normal div, but towards the end what's going to happen is this is going to be set as display none. So you're not going to see this when you first load the page. You're going to have to press that button to see it. But for now, I'm just going to make it visible for starters to make it easier and simpler. So now I need to go ahead and make a title. And now this title should be chat with me. Right? So now I'm going to go ahead and make our first P element, and that's going to say, okay, so I'm going to name my person Mac, but you can go ahead and name this person, this fictitious person, whatever you want. Hello, I'm Mac. And then since it's a chatting application, he's going to have to ask you a question. So he's going to ask the user, how are you today? No, more like, how's life? Question mark. Now if we save it, we have chat with me. Hello, I'm Mac. How is life? So now I need to go ahead and put in the inputs. To do that, I'm just going to make a normal div, and inside it, I'm going to go ahead and put in the input type text. And no IDs for now. And then I'm going to, instead of using input type submit, actually I think I'll try using input type submit this time. Although you have to change the value, don't you? Value equals, okay, and then I'll make the value say chat with 3 dots or a space. Let's see what that looks like. So for now that does, no, I think I'll just use a button instead. So inside of this button I'm going to go ahead and put a span, because in the CSS I'm going to make a special animation where when you hover over the button, the text moves over to the left, and 2 arrows that point to the right pop up from the right. They kind of actually fade in more than pop up. So now save this button span chat. So now what I'm going to do during these videos is I'm going to put the style right here instead of making an extra cascading style sheets, which is what CSS stands for. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in my JavaScript under these two script tags right here. The reason I'm not putting my two script tags in the head is because sometimes in the head, when you have it in the head and you're doing HTML DOM, like what we're going to be doing, in some browsers it actually doesn't work. It has to be under the defined things. So HTML DOM, what it does is it uses JavaScript to create and manipulate HTML. So first we need a div ID site. You can go ahead and rename all of these IDs and classes whatever you want. The reason I'm naming this site is because this is going to be the site where we're going to go ahead and put in all of our new P elements that say text. And then here we need to go ahead and access that, so I'm going to go ahead and make a var site equals document, which is this whole thing right here. This whole thing right here is the document according to JavaScript. And then there's this special command that says get element by ID. What this does is it gives it access to this div ID right here. And it works with anything that works with an ID. Input type text that has an ID, or at least it can work with an ID, so JavaScript can manipulate it if you give it permission by using this command. So now we go ahead and access it. The ID I wrote was site. Now you'll see that in JavaScript, whenever I access or whenever I use get element by ID, I'll usually use var, and then I'm gonna rename the variable the same thing that I named the ID, because you can only have one name for an ID, and the same thing with the variable, you can only have one type of name for a variable. So that's kind of two birds, one stone type of thing. And now what you can do is grab this text box, and to do that we need to assign an ID to this one as well. Now this ID, I'm going to go ahead and name it input text, but again you can name it whatever you want, and feel free to make it your own. So again, we're going to use the document.getElementById, and then the ID is input text, because that's what I set it as. So now we have the div ID site where we're going to put in all of our new P elements, and then we have this. So now what we need is we need the new P element. Now this is how you create any HTML element. So first you use a variable. So since we're creating a P or a paragraph element, I'm going to go ahead and name it P. And then the way you do it is first you access the whole document by doing document dot, and then instead of using the get element by ID, what you're going to type is you're going to type a lowercase create and then uppercase E in element, no spaces, and then put in the parentheses. So now since I'm using Visual Studios, it gives you a list of all of the elements you can use. So you can use object A, it goes all the way from A through X. So, and according to this, we can use the P element, but we have to use it in between quotation marks. So I'm going to go ahead and put in single quotation marks, put a P inside. So now we just created a P element. Now it's not on the page yet because we have to put it on the page manually, which is why we have this div ID site. But for now, it's kind of stored in the cache, or not the cache, it's kind of stored in the server type of thing. I don't exactly know how that works. So now if we go ahead and refresh, we have this, same thing, yeah. So now, what we need to do is we need to make it text align right, because when I type something like it's great, and then I click on this chat button, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go to the right, because that's my side of the chat, while the left is the other side of the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and access that variable I just made, which is P, and then here, in order to set an attribute, what you would normally do is you would do style equals and then text align right. But see, here we can't do that because we don't have that start tag and end tag. We only have this. So the way we do it is we set attribute, or we use the JavaScript command set attribute, and then in the parentheses, as shown here, first we use the first we have the actual attribute, so that goes inside quotation marks. We want style because we want to set a text line right. Then next to the comma, which you can consider as the equal sign, you can go ahead and put in the stuff that goes in the quotation marks here. So that's text align right. Oh, I always forget to put that extra semicolon. So you just an attribute to a paragraph element. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and put text into this P element, because right now it's an empty P element with the text align right. You won't be able to see it if you actually put it in the page. And the text that we want is the text inside this text box right here, and we already have that. Actually, no, we don't. In order to grab the text from this text box, we need to put dot value actually. The reason we put dot value is because when you get rid of the dot value, what you have is the whole text box. And we're going to be manipulating the whole text box, and I don't want that. I just want the text inside the text box. So now we need to go ahead and put in the text. To do that, we're going to use the append child right here, because I use it so often. Now what append child does is, so right now P is the parent element. So this is the paragraph element, and this is the parent element. So then what you have is kind of like a branch that goes down, and then you can append a child to it. Now this child, it's kind of like how a div works. So right now this div right here is the parent element. Now inside of this div are what are the child elements. So this input and this button are two child elements. Now this button has another child element, that's the span. And this span has another child element, which is text. So that's exactly how the append child works. What it does is since you already have two things created, or you can create something in here, what it does is it puts it underneath the P element. So like right here. So this is our P element, and then the child of this P element is this text right here. So we need to go ahead and do the same for this, but we have to use JavaScript. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and access the document again, and then document.create, instead of create element, it's called create text node, since everything in HTML.JavaScript is a text node, or is a node, sorry. And then go ahead and put in the parentheses, and then instead of typing anything inside quotation marks, instead of putting a string, we already have a string. The string is the input text right here. So we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste that, or just type that in by hand. Now go ahead and end that one, end that line. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and append this, or append this P element right here to the actual div right here. And to do that, we need to access that div, which we already did with this variable. So we're going to do site.append child. The word append means to add, so if that helps with definitions. And then the child, we already created it and edited it a lot. The child would be P. Now if we go ahead and save this, now we have a big block of code. I'm going to go ahead and make this a function so that it doesn't go automatically. Function, I'm going to go ahead and call the function update, because what it does is it's going to update this div right here. Like when you type a new thing and click on this chat button, it's going to go ahead and push this text up and then put this new text down here. So I'm going to go ahead and make that function called update, and then I'm going to put everything in here inside the curly brackets. Go ahead and save it. So now we have a function update. It doesn't do anything because we need to call it. So now the way I prefer to call it is, so now there's two ways to call it. You can either do this where you give the button an ID, and then I'm going to go ahead and call it submit. And then right here you're going to go ahead and access that ID by doing var submit space equals to document dot get element by ID submit. Then what you do is you fix any typos. Clearly I have a bunch of those. Then what you do is we're going to use the onClick command. So submit dot onClick space equals function. And its function is literally just to call another function. And then since this is one line of code right here, we're going to go ahead and put a semicolon at the end of that. So now this is the first way we can do it. So now if we go ahead and refresh, type it's great, text should pop up right here in this screen because I have text line right. And it did. Text popped up right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just create another div right here. You'll see why in later videos. Sorry, that should say /div. Okay, and since I'm somebody who really likes to have things beautiful, I'm gonna go ahead and press tab on all of these. There. Actually, I'm gonna just go ahead and call this the display, because that's kind of what it is, right? Right here, this kind of part, it's kind of like the display, and then this right here is like your input box where you input things. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this div display. We don't have to do anything with it right now, but in later videos with CSS, I'm gonna have to do a lot of things with it. So now that's the first way that you can go ahead and run this function when you click on it. The second way you can do this is button on click, and then you can run the function from here. Now our function is update, so you just do that. And now if I go ahead and get rid of all of this, save it, it should run the function. Let's see. There it is. So now it doesn't matter how you do it. The way I personally like to do it is I'll do this, because this script right here, this script tag is going to have a bunch of lines of code in it, and I don't want to make it too much with excessive, and I'd rather keep it in the HTML so that you can read it clearly instead of having to search through many lines of JavaScript. So this is how I'm going to keep it, but if you like that other way better, that's all up to you. So now what we need to do is, since right now what we have right now is we have text that stays inside the text box, and that gets annoying after a while because we have to make our users press backspace forever just to type in something else like this. So let's go ahead and fix this problem by clearing the text box every time it's clicked. And then the enter button doesn't work, so we have to use the chat button. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this. So just like how this button has an on click right here, input ID or input type texts can also have this on click function. So we have on click right here, And now we're going to use a little bit of JavaScript, which is kind of tricky, to every time we click this button, what's going to happen is, or every time we click this text box, what's going to happen is it's going to clear. And to do that, we're going to have to do this. On click this dot value space equals empty. So right now, so we just reset this new value to this. So now let's refresh, and then whatever you type here, and then go ahead and just click chat, and then when you click on this, it's going to go ahead and empty that text box. Now you can go ahead and change this to something else like hello. Save it and then refresh. So then just go ahead and click on the text box. It'll say hello right away. What this little line of code does is it takes this text box, and you know how we access the value here by using the dot value? This line of code does the same. It accesses the value and it changes it to whatever is inside here. So if it's empty, like this, you save it, and then you go ahead and refresh. What it does is every time you click on it, it makes the text box value empty. So it's kind of a way of erasing things. So now we have created a chat button that prints whatever we write in this text box to the right of the website. In the next video, I will be showing you guys how to go ahead and make that pop-up, and then how to make that pop-up that's going to be right here in the middle, and how I'm going to go ahead and fit all of this in here. So until next time, bye.